staff members were responding. The NDCS special teams were called in to assist. Due to the ongoing investigation, I cannot share details regarding timelines. During this time, the following occurred. A recreation staff member barricaded herself in an office in the gymnasium and was rescued by special team members. Inmates had control of 2 housing units. This included staff offices, but did not include the control centers. They were not breached. The special teams rescued multiple staff from 2 housing units. Housing units 2 and 3 sustained the most damage, and the damage included fire and smoke damage. There were windows broken out, ceiling tiles were torn down, a wall constructed to separate 2 living units was torn down, staff offices were damaged, cameras were taken down and destroyed, and there was water damage in the units. The injuries to staff and inmates included the 2 staff assaulted during the initial altercation, which both received non-life-threatening injuries. Corporal Hatzenbuehler, caseworker Gurin, both returned to work. 1 inmate shot in the leg during the initial altercation, a non-life-threatening injury. There was 1 inmate that was injured during a staff use of force, also a non-life-threatening injury. And there were 2 inmates that received non-life-threatening injuries that were caused by other inmates. And 2 inmates died. The cause of death is unknown at this time. However, it appears to be caused by other inmates. The special teams assisted staff in regaining control of the housing units and other areas of the prison. I thank the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, the Tecumseh Volunteer Fire Department, the Nebraska State Patrol, and the State Fire Marshal's Office for their ongoing assistance during these incidents. All inmates are accounted for, and the public is safe. Staff members continue to manage the facility. The facility is locked down until further notice. And at this time, I'll try to answer some questions. I have a little bit of time before I need to get back to the command center.
Can you talk to us a little bit about staffing at Tecumseh? How many actual staff work there and how many are needed according to the population?
No, I can't give you specific numbers around the staffing. I can tell you that there is a staffing model and that we follow that model. And for the custody staffing, those are mandatory posts. So we fill those posts. If there's vacancies, we either use relief staff or we will use overtime to fill those positions.
Is it understaffed?
No, I don't believe that the facility is understaffed.
So there's enough staff for the population?
I believe that there is, yes.
Is there too many people for the prison?
No, actually, Tecumseh is one of 2 facilities that's very close to its design capacity. Today, there's about 60 more inmates in the facility than the design capacity, so it's about 106% of design.
Is this related to the incident at Nebraska State Penitentiary on Saturday?
Well, of course, we're still early in the investigation of what caused this incident. There's no indication and no evidence that's been uncovered at this point to suggest any connection between what happened at NSP on Saturday and this event.
Is it related to the crowding, do you think?
Well, again, this is one facility that really isn't crowded, so I can't make any assumptions in that direction, not at this time. We'll be doing a critical incident review. We'll bring in a team, including some outside resources that I haven't yet identified, but we'll bring in a team to do a review of this incident. We'll gather as much information as possible, try to identify the factors that led up to it, as well as the management of the incident, and that information will be made public.
Do you know when you're going to release the names of the inmates that were injured and killed?
As soon as we know that next of kin have been located and identified, we want to make sure we do that before we bring it out.
Do you know how many total inmates were involved with the disturbance at Tecumseh?
Estimates vary between 100 and 200. It's hard to tell exactly who was involved and who was simply trying to stay out of the way, but also not cause problems for themselves.
There was talk about there was a mob gathered. Do we know why they were gathering? And what happened when they were trying to disperse that mob? Take us through those steps.
Well, again, no, we don't at this point know what that group was talking about, but it was a large enough group that staff felt the need to tell them to disperse. And at the point that they directed them to disperse, 1 staff member was assaulted, second staff member stepped in to assist. They were also assaulted. The officer in the tower felt that there was the potential for serious injury to staff or other offenders, other inmates, and first fired the warning shot and then fired a shot at an inmate which struck him in the leg.
When they were gathered at this mob, though, there wasn't any fighting or altercations going on at the time, or there was threat of it?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Just that it was an unauthorized grouping. We don't allow inmates to gather in large groups. And
How many correctional staff were working at the time, and did you call in additional?
I don't know how many staff were on duty at the time. Yes, we did call in both additional staff from just the regular duty rosters as well as special team members. Ultimately, we had 76 members from the CERT team to supplement all the staffing and to manage all the bringing things back under control and then dealing with all the inmates.
We've heard that initially they were trying to air some grievances, and then something went wrong with that. Do you know about that?
I'm aware that an inmate made that statement, but that's all the information I have about that.
Are the officers involved in the shooting?
Should go here first.
Oh, I was gonna say, the timeline, you said 1 o'clock is when you took over, got control of the institution. There were fires that were going well after that. Can you explain that?
I can. So by 1 o'clock, we had brought all of the inmates into spaces that we controlled and either locked them into cells or locked them into programming or other areas, including 3 small outside yards. So they were locked within that space. At some point, it was a cool evening and it got a little cool, especially as we got into the early morning. They had plastic chairs available. Not sure what they used for the ignition source, but they were able to get a fire going. A bonfire would be a good word, and they used those chairs and burned those chairs. They were plastic, so they burned well, and they burned with a lot of black smoke. And that's what we saw. It's certainly not an outcome that we would want, but we had the inmates contained and controlled within a space. The fire wasn't going to cause any damage to the facility or anyone else, and at that point in time, that wasn't a priority to focus on.
Are you saying how these inmates died? Are you saying how these inmates died?
Other than, at this point, they received injuries that resulted in their death. That's what I have at this point.
Can